What is up, everybody? You already know who it is. It's your boy, Mocho, and I'm back with another video, Bible reading. You already know what it is. It's the new day. It's January 5th, and we got to read the Holy Scripture. Alright? So let's go. Today's video, we are covering Genesis 12 to 15, I believe. Let's see, 12 to 15. Genesis 12 to 15. Alright? So, let's begin today's reading. The call of Abram. With the life of Abram, a new chapter in the history of God's dealings with mankind's beginnings. God's presence in Abram's life does not appear to be based upon any special meritorious qualities that Abram himself might possess, but simply because God chooses him as the man through him whom he will bless of all mankind. Abram lives at a time when in the western part of the Fertile Crescent, the Egyptian Empire is in the golden age during the 25th dynasty. In the eastern part of the crescent, the Sumerians have controlled the area from their capital at Ur, somewhere around 1950 BC. However, the Sumerians are overthrown by the Elamites, who came from the east of the Tigris River. The Elamite invades causes such confusion and turmoil in this once stable area that hordes of people from the Arabian desert that are drawn into the more fertile area. These descendants of Ham from the west, or Armaches as they are known, decisively take over the land and establish various capitals, the most noble of which is at Mari, on the northern Euphrates River. This Amorite culture will flourish until about 1700 BC, when it will be overran by the king Hammurabi of the Babylonians, who is remembered particularly because of the code of laws in which bears his name. It is this Amorite culture in which Abram is most closely associated while in Haran. However, Abram himself is an Aramean and a descendant of Shem. Though the details are sketchy, and it appears that Abram belongs to the roots and unsettled and Seminomatic people who wander about among more settled people in search of food and water for the flocks which they tend. As the Genesis record continues, Abram and his clan will be seen wandering throughout Canaan in this very fashion. The life of Abram, however, is more than a historical narrative about a Semitic Arabian wandering throughout Canaan. It is a life which will later be praised as an outstanding example of faith in God. Whether his father Terah, now dead and himself middle-aged, Abram is called by God to leave his homeland, his tribe, his his father's family in order to journey 300 miles to a land which about he knows very little. Once Abram arrives in the land, God promises Abram that he will give the land not to Abram but to his offspring. And this is promised despite the fact that the land is already occupied by Canaanites. Yet Abram believes God's promises and continues to worship God. As the Genesis record continues, it appears that God had already called Abram at an earlier time, which other scripture indicates had taken place when Abram was still in his former homeland. But here God reaffirms the call and covenants a sevenfold promise both to Abram and through him to all the peoples of the world. God's call to Abram. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." God's promise to Abram. "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all people on earth will be blessed through you." Abram leaves for Canaan. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and all and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for land of Canaan. They arrived there, the land promised to the offspring. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Morah at Shechem. At the time the Canaanites were in the land, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. Worship near Bethel. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. Abram dishonors himself in Egypt. Having seen that Abram is a man of great faith who trusted God enough to move to an unknown land, it has come as somewhat of a disappointment to learn that Abram can be a man of great moral weakness. This insight comes out of an ancient which takes place in Egypt, where Abram takes his family because of a famine in Canaan. Even at 65 years of age, Abram's wife Sarai is less than middle age and still beautiful, especially in the eyes of the Egyptians, who would be attacked by Sarai's promisingly fair complexion. Fearful that the Egyptian man will be attacked enough by her beauty to kill men in order to have Sarai, Abram asked Sarai to represent herself as his sister, if necessary. Sarai is in fact a half-sister to Abram. Since both have the same father, but asking Sarai to join him in a description which could result in a sacrifice of her honor is clearly an indication of weakness in Abram's character, and Abram's failure to trust God to deliver him out of any trouble that might result from his being completely truthful shows that Abram's faith is still a matter of personal struggle. Abram leaves for Egypt. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because of the famine was severe. Abram plans deception. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you." Sorry taken by the Pharaoh. When Abram comes to Egypt, the Egyptians saw Shuri was a very beautiful woman, and when the Pharaoh's officials saw her, they promised her to the Pharaoh, and she was then taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female servants, and camels. God delivers Shuri. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on the Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Shuri. So the Pharaoh summoned Abram. "What have you done to me?" he said. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go." Then the Pharaoh gives orders about Abram to his men, and they sent out on his way with his wife and everything he had. Separation of Abram and Lot. Abram has dishonored himself in Egypt, but he is not disdained to remain in this valley of self-defeat and moral failure. As he and his nephew Lot come out of Egypt once again into Canaan, the renewal of Abram's moral character became more evident. When grazing land becomes scarce and trouble develops between their herdsmen, Abram is put in a position where, as the elder, was it Patriarch, he can incite on his right to whatever territory he might choose, rather than being self-assertive. However, Abram gives Lot his first choice, and accepts the consequences when Lot chooses the then lush valley of the Jordan River instead of the less fertile hill country of Canaan. The situation to his conflict with Lot is not only both practical and gracious on Abram's part, but also further evidence of Abram's faith in God. He had come to the area that God's call and had been promised to his descendants would someday inherit the land. Yet despite the fact that his decision could well affect that inheritance, Abram sacrificed his personal gain in favor of maintaining an important family relationship. While this gives reassuring insight of Abram's depth of the commitment to God, it also hints of a serious character flaw in Lot, which will become more and more evident. The Genesis record begins the account of this incident as Abram and Lot bring their large clan of people, as well as herds of cattle and flocks of sheep, out of Egypt into the Negev, or southern part of Canaan. Abram and Lot leave Egypt. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with them. Abram had become very wealthy in the livestock and in silver and gold. Returning to Bethel. From the Negev he went from place to place until he came into Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier and where he had been first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. Trouble between herdsmen. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks of herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at the time. Abram proposes separation. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herds and mine, for we are close relatives. It is not the whole land before you. Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right, and if you go to the right, I'll go to the left." Lot chooses the land near Sodom. Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of Jordan towards Zoar was well watered, and like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chooses for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived at the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched the tents near Sodom. Now that the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. Promise repeated to Abram. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had parted from him, "Look around from where you are, to the north and to the south, to the east and the west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust from the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you." Abram settles in Hebron. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre in Hebron, where he pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord. The feats of the kings. With Lot settling near Sodom, a city of the Jordan plain near the Dead Sea, and Abram settling to the west of Hebron, not far from the south of modern Jerusalem. The Genesis record shows the transformation of Abram from a wandering Hebrew patriarch concerned mostly with finding substance for his people and herds, into a courageous warrior. It all happens in the contents of political and military turmoil to the east of Hebron. How rather far removed from Abram in both distance and seeming importance. For some 12 to 15 years, a power of struggle has been taking place among various kings of the east, among whom King Kedorlaomer of Elam has remained the strongest. When 5 kings in the Dead Sea joined to oppose the East Federation, Kedorlaomer gathers his 3 allies for a punitive foray into the valley of Siddim, which surrounds the Dead Sea. Not only did the kings of the East Federation defeat the local kings, but they also sacked Sodom and Gomorrah and took away the inhabitants of those cities. Among the hostages are Abram's nephew Lot and his family, who by at this time have been taking up resistance in Sodom. When the word of Lot's capture reaches Abram, he responds quickly and unselfishly by gathering a small force of men and settling out to rescue his captured relatives. Daring to challenge a much larger force of trained soldiers, Abram and his men execute a surprise attack during the night, completely routing the enemy and liberating Lot and his family. As Abram is returning from this exciting venture, he is met and welcomed by King Melchizedek of Salem, probably an ancient name of the city known today as Jerusalem. When Melchizedek pays honor to Abraham's heroism by feeding I can't even speak, Abram and his men. Abram responds by giving Melchizedek a tenth of all they are carrying. This act will be more fully explained by subsequent texts, but sacrifice it to say now that Abram recognizes Melchizedek not only as a king, but also as a priest in the service of the same true living God which Abram himself worships. The Genesis record begins now with the background leading to Abram's dramatic rescue to Lot. War among Eastern kings. At the time when Ephiphel was king of Shinar, Arach king of Elestar, King Dorlamor king of Edom, and Tidal king of Gamim. These kings went to war against Bera king of Sodom, Barisha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, Shimber king of Zeboim, and the king of Bala, that is Zor. All these later kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Dead Sea Valley. History of the conflict. For 12 years, they have been subject to Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Rephaites in Ashtaroth, Carmel, and Zestes in Ham, and the Emites in Shiva, Kartim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran near the desert. Then they turned back and went to Mishphet, that is Kadesh. They conquered the whole territory of the Alamadikis, as well as the Armates who were living in the Hazirsan Tamar. Defeat of the Dead Sea Kings. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bala, that is Zor, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of the Sodom against Chedorlaomer, king of Edom, Tidal, king of Gamim, Raphael, king of Shinar, and Rich, king of Islar, I don't know. 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full in tar pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled. Some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled into the hills. Lot taken captive. The 4 kings seized all the goods in Sodom and Gomorrah and all their foods. Then they were sent away. They also carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in the Sodom. Abram rescues Lot. A man who was escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre, and Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Anar, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out 318 men born in his household, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he rotated them, pursuing them as far as Haba, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the woman and the other people. Abram refuses reward. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, and the king of Sodom came out to meet with him in the valley of Shavah. This is the king's valley. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself." But Abram said to the king of Sodom, "With raise of hand I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God's most high creator of the heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, 'I made Abram rich.' I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten, and their share belongs to the men who went with me. To Agnar, Esau, and Mir, let them have their share." Melchizedek blesses Abram. Then Melchizedek, king of Sodom, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God's Most High, and blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by God's Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praised be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Well, that is today's reading. Quick reflection. 5 kings, 5 wars. Not 5 wars, 5 kings, 1 war. They jumped 2 kings. They failed. The 2 kings failed. They got their land taken away, from what I'm getting at. This is interesting. I sit back after reading this, after off camera. I really do think about this a lot. I'm trying to understand, process everything. Kind of feels like me because I'm about to leave. When he said Abram's about to leave his homeland and everything, his father, everything, his friend, I related to a certain part of the story. It touched me, so I don't know. Things seem a little weird, I feel like the Holy Ghost might be speaking to me. I'm not even fronting about that. It's not even a joke. I'm being 100% real. It's weird. I don't know. So I guess I have nothing to say. I just got to reflect in my own thoughts right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I did. That was Genesis 12 to 15, I think it was. So yeah. Well, you already know who it is. It's your boy Mucho. And it's time for me to skedaddle on at it. Alright? Peace.